Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Development Hell podcast. The movie club's back at it again, talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 1978 adaptation for Halloween. And we're a little light on the movie club this time, but we got Joe, we got Matt, we got Vinnie, and of course, we got me, Shane, here to talk about this horror movie classic. So, we ready to talk some Body Snatchers, everyone?
Happy Halloween. Yes, I am.
So the real question is, if we all got replaced by pod people, would we still go to Applebee's?
I don't go to Applebee's now.
I think
so.
That's
the
pod person. That's the pod person.
I was about to say maybe we have to replace Vinnie with a pod person. He might go to Applebee's with us.
I think instead of going to Applebee's, we would be going to
Chili's.
Denny's.
No, or like the off-brand family restaurant version of it that tries to be Applebee's. There we go there.
Or what's the other one? The like the Big Corral or something.
Oh, Golden Corral.
Yeah,
that's a buffet.
Oh, okay. I've never been.
All kinds of jerseys there. You probably would get turned into a pod person.
But that's a question though. Do the replicants actually eat food?
I mean, probably.
I guess they didn't deal with that, did they?
Not really. They didn't show them eat anything.
Do they eat and poop?
I don't know. I mean, they kind of just like. I mean, the beauty of the film, and we're going to talk about it as we talk about it, is that we don't really know what they are, which only adds to the mystery of it. There's a lot of great, subtlety in the movie, right? Where they're not just beating you in the head. And I know I'm getting like right into it, but one thing I really just want to like get off the bat is the fact that the sound design was so good. The start of the movie had a score, and it started off with a score, right? But then at the end of the movie, without spoiling anything, the credits are silent, right? Most movies you would have like a bookend when it comes to your credits. By showing that, it really emphasizes the tone the movie is going for, and I was all for it. Anyways.
No, I actually agree with you, Joe. Like sometimes like doing stuff, even like the end credits, like it's like, damn, like are you still like rigging us out for like fear? Like no, because like the original Halloween movie, like it's just deep breathing. And like it doesn't end with like the theme. It ends with just deep breathing, and it's like, wait, he disappeared. Where is he?
And
you are leaving out the best part though, was when the camera looks down at the ground. He's gone. It's like, and it's just like, he's gone.
It's just clever ways where like you don't have to, and I think that's something we're probably going to talk about more, is the fact that the movie is just very practical in a sense, where it does things that are not outside of the realm of possibility, but by doing it, you buy into it. Like, the effects are not, they're not like you watch the effects and you're like, I could see how they did that, right? Like I could see not the seams, but I can know how that's done. Kind of like, a more expensive version of Sweeting, like in Be Kind Rewind, where it's like more low key, like low cut, but you actually have like a budget and you have people putting in a lot of effort into these effects. But at the end of the day, you're like, hey, I could totally see that they put a Halloween mask on top of that dog. But dude, that effect really, in the way they put that out on film, is not just the dog running around with a Halloween mask. It was. It really was. Really caught me off guard too, because then I thought about it, I was like, wait, the character was introduced earlier in the film, the hobo, the homeless guy and his dog. Like, did they just like the aliens try to replicate one, but they ended up just doing both by accident?
It was basically Brundlefly.
Yeah, essentially.
Specifically.
Yeah. With Brundlefly in the movie. Jeff Goldblum.
It's so creepy. Just like how creepy.
Oh,
so creepy.
God.
It's horrifying.
Why, Shane?
But it's, and it just really gets down to it. It's a dog with a Halloween mask, and I feel bad for the dog having to run around with that thing, but you know, nowadays
It
they would
was the
just easy that.
70s.
I'm sure.
It was a different
I'm
time.
sure the dog got paid.
They fed him really well after he couldn't find his way back while he still had the fucking mask on.
Matt, what are some of your general thoughts about the film?
General thoughts. I think that did you guys see the Watchmen show on HBO?
I haven't.
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't spoil it, but there's this.
No, you can. I wasn't gonna watch it.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I recommend
think
it. Honestly, I
really
truly do recommend it.
Yeah.
Like, I was surprised on how many levels it worked. It was almost kind of like
It's like top tier HBO content.
It is.
Yeah, it's like some like the best seasons of like Fargo or like it's like a very awesome whatever the hell.
I would say it's the most consistent thing Damon Lindelof made. Consistently good, not just good at one point and then sucks at the end. It was just like good all the way through.
I'm not that much of a TV guy, so that's why I said I wasn't.
Definitely not TV. It's
Matt, what was your point?
Quality.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. No, so in that show, there's like this plot point of like these creatures coming down from the sky that turn into goo, and immediately that's what I was thinking of. I'm not gonna go too deep into it, I guess, for anybody like an audience person that's like watching a show, but like immediately I was thinking about that, and then so I wonder if there's some kind of connection to. I thought that the ending was really interesting. I feel like I've seen like the GIF of him doing that, and like I've seen people like text me that or something like that. But I don't know, just see like in the context of the movie, I thought that was like, oh, okay, gotcha.
Like you don't even realize it's a spoiler either. Like it's been shown so many times, but you don't know what it means. That I was still surprised that was the conclusion. I thought I would have been spoiled by that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like no, like this is it's a really, I don't know, is the word nihilistic? Just like no, like no one wins. Like we are overtaken by something that I think like Leonard Nimoy's character said, we came from a dying planet.
Oh yeah, the line, I even wrote it down in my journal too. The line he said at the end is the function of life is survival. Like to me, that just really
it's like
to me.
Yeah, there's no point in like hate anymore or love like that. So like that part, just like I don't want to say mindless consumption, but just like consumption without like empathy or whatever. Like that reminded me of just like I guess like multiple zombie movies. But specifically at that one zombie movie where it's like set in a mall.
Yeah.
And I guess like the metaphor is supposed to be kind of like consumerism or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's probably not what the director or the writer had in mind.
I think it was more or less too, like not just consuming, but just kind of like I think a fungus or like, you know, most invasive species, kind of like the whole thing with the lanternflies and why it's such a bad thing to have lanternflies in the, you know, in the population, because they ruin the natural ecosystem. So when you're putting in an invasive species that's not supposed to belong there, and you're not doing anything about it early on, or not really catching it, it is going to like fuck shit up.
You remember the murder hornets from like 2022, or this is 2022?
2020, just on top of everything else going on.
It was 2020 because everything bad happens in 2020.
Yep. Vinnie, what are your general thoughts on the film?
Okay, well, this was my first time seeing it. Before then, I had seen the 50s version once before, like back in college, and I really liked how this movie was able to adapt to this new decade. Because you have the original 50s movie that really takes on that feel of like classic 50s B movies, whereas this one really taps into like like the paranoid thriller type of aesthetic that you saw in a lot of 70s movies,
Mhm.
especially in that scene in like the second half of the film where you have like the handheld camera following Donald Sutherland like up and down the streets, and he's like in the phone booths, like trying to like keep his voice down, like and call
Yeah.
call people for help, and trying to like keep a low profile like amidst the crowd, like the crowd of like pod people. And I really liked how like with this one it wasn't afraid to go with a downer of an ending. I know the 50s one kind of has like a downer of an ending, but I remember reading how originally the 50s one, it was just going to end with the main character like screaming, they're here, you're next, you're next. But then they were told, no, you got to put in this frame story of him, of showing that he's alive, explaining what's going on, just so you can, I guess, incorporate a little bit of hope that he's gonna get through all this. But no, like I really liked how they weren't afraid to go the much more hopeless route with the ending to the 70s one.
Yeah,
It's actually what.
I was gonna say, to add to that too, like, don't you think it kind of like really emphasizes how scary it is? Like, if it ended it
Mhm.
with a helpful ending, you would have just been like, "Oh, that was really good," and roll credits. But it's like it's just getting more and more progressively scarier,
Mhm.
even as the credits are rolling. Like I said earlier, where the fact that you have no music at all just really makes it hang and really sits with you. And I had to watch something funny because I was watching it at night to get the creeps out of me.
and I'll just say one more like little thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
what I noticed is kind of funny is that Veronica Cartwright, like the actress at the very end, she's like the last person standing like amidst like a city of pod people, and it's almost like um like she appeared in the birds, and like you have that last scene of her to be Hedren, Jessica Tandy and Rod Taylor getting out of the house, like surrounded by like all these birds, and just like the whole similarity between the two movies with just like being surrounded by by something that's not human. It was just like a fun little comparison between the two.
Do you think it's
Yeah.
possible maybe when she was reading the script, she was like, I like this because it's similar to what I did before in my work, which is probably why she ended up taking the role?
It's possible. I wouldn't I wouldn't put you past it.
Because I was thinking about that as well too. Because I'm sorry, Shane. I didn't know if you were gonna say something there.
So this is probably, I think, the third time that I've watched this. And I'm a big fan of science fiction. And I think like one of my favorite films is The Thing. And this definitely has a lot of similarities in terms of it's really drawing upon that paranoia. It's a remake of a 50s style kind of film. And Vinny, I appreciate you especially bring up like this is definitely a 70s film. Because like it feels like a 70s film. It has that feel. And like you bring up like the kind of nihilistic kind of ending gives off that like French Connection vibe where it's just like, nope, we're just gonna end this thing with something dark and hopeless. But it's it has amazing effects. It has strong performances, and there's an interesting group of characters that we follow too, because like how we're introduced to Donald Sutherland is he's just like this crotchety, uh, you know, health inspector coming into like this restaurant and stuff like that. And generally, like, would we really like this guy? But then we're following him along on this journey of like, there's aliens, and there are aliens coming after us, and this is such a classic story because, like, I know, Vinny, you were talking about how, like, you're checking out all the different versions of this. You even watched, like, that Invasion, which is like from 2008 or somewhere around there. I have to say my personal favorite's still The World's End from Edgar Wright. But this is how you remake something and do something different with it. And this really does feel timely. And besides The Thing, this is probably the most paranoid movie experience that I've had watching a movie. And that's the whole entire thing, really drawing upon that. But I think one thing to definitely talk about, and we've talked about a little bit more, we've already talked about a little bit, are the effects. And, you have like the subtlety of that like mossiness that keeps like subtly popping up places. And it's just like, yep, slowly trying to take over and stuff like that. And of course, creepy dog face, human dog thing. But I guess what are some of the things that really stuck out to all of you that you liked most about the film?
One thing that I really liked was just well the first time I was even though this was my first time watching it, like I knew that Donald Sutherland was going to be an alien at the very end, but during that scene, like I was thinking, like, I wonder how chilling it must have been for like for the first audiences that saw this, to see it for the first time, where you have that ending scene and you see him acting like a pod person, but you assume, or I mean, I would assume at least that he was just like he was just acting like one, just like just to blend in and everything, and then and then at the very end, just to have your heart drop when you find out he is actually an alien. Like,
what a twist it would have been that he was just doing that to freak her out. It's an after the credit scene and he's just like, oh, just kidding.
No, I mean, I mean, like, you just feel so bad for Veronica Cartwright, because like she thinks that he's still safe to be around, but nope.
And just walk up to him and now she's helpless.
Just
like,
I mean, it's just a gut punch of an ending.
It's one of those kinds of films that it's just like, well, we're hopeless. We're screwed. And it's, that whole like the era of the 70s where a lot of filmmakers were just taking those kinds of chances and had a very nihilistic view of the world. And it's so interesting because just a few years later, like the 80s come along and then it's commercialism and all kinds of stuff like that. But at least we have sci-fi horror to keep us on track and realizing how effed we're all in the world.
Well, at least Steven Spielberg was there making sci-fi films that gave us hope in the end. So it balanced out.
There you go. Which actually, that's very interesting because this came out the same years or around the same time as Close Encounters, right?
Yeah.
That's 77.
Yes.
So Close Encounters just tricks you into thinking that for 2/3 of the movie that something ominous and terrifying is going to happen, and you get to the end and
then actually the year after Invasion was Alien.
In space, can they even hear you scream?
Well, and also Veronica Cartwright was an alien.
Yep, there you go. She had an interesting streak there.
That's where I saw her from. I was wondering, like, where is she from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then she was married to the Goldblum.
For real?
Well, in the movie. You got Jeff Goldblum. I thought it was, what was very interesting for me was seeing Leonard Nimoy in something that wasn't Star Trek. And he's it's interesting because he's easy to hide because he's just like a cold intellectual to begin with. And you're just like, I remember when you first meet him in like that bookstore and stuff like that. He totally was already a pod person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, I didn't think anything of it the first time I watched it. I just thought he was just some kind of asshole.
That's what I thought.
And then it turned out it's like, no, he's just a pod person and an asshole.
Well, actually, that's actually fun. I mean, I don't know. It's actually funny because his character in Star Trek, like his race of people are meant to be emotionless.
Yep. And this one is just like, yeah, he plays that off well. Good bit of casting.
Well, yeah, you know what? Like that's probably why they chose him, because they knew he could pull off that cold like emotionlessness.
Well, and also I think on some level, probably too, like up to this point, Leonard Nimoy was Spock. We love Spock. Like having him in this kind of role was very interesting. They even tried to do the same crap in Transformers, where it's just like they brought Leonard Nimoy in a plot twist. Sorry to spoil a Transformers movie for Michael Bay, but Leonard Nimoy's character Centennial Prime is
well, to be fair, Michael Bay eventually ended up spoiling Transformers movies. So,
well, on top of the fact that he played the villain, he was in the Transformers movie in the '80s. That character that he did play before being a good character was the villain of that movie, voiced by Leonard Nimoy.
There you go.
I only enjoyed the first one.
I like Bumblebee a lot, but Michael Bay didn't do that one.
I didn't see that one yet.
But I like this has a good cast in it, and like Donald Sutherland, I know we talked a lot about when we did Ordinary People, and he didn't quite get enough credit compared to like some of the. Well, obviously, like he's the only one to get nominated for an Oscar. In that, I think he does a great job of anchoring this film, and like I alluded to before, like he's that kind of character where it's just like, do we really like him? But like we are in this situation with him, and he seems like he could be one of the most resourceful people to survive this. And I think that's why it's so shocking at the end when like we're convinced he has to be. Like he can't possibly. It's Donald Sutherland. And then it's like, nope, bone chilling. And you're just like, well, no, we're all effed. We're done here. But okay.
Another thing I liked about this movie was how where you have the 50s version taking place in just more of a town. This one really ups the danger in having it take place in a city where you have millions of people, and like it just made it feel just like more like, even though it's a bigger space, it feels more claustrophobic because you have so many more people who you have to be afraid of.
I do think that's a little bit more terrifying, like you said too, about like, hey, it's a small town full of a bunch of pod people. It's a whole entire city of pod people, and you're just like, well, how are we supposed to navigate this? You don't. You're screwed. And it's an interesting thing too, because like, why do people hate remakes so much? Is because so many of the times they're just lazy, just rip-offs of like, what I could have just watched the original one, but like it changes settings, it changes philosophy and perspective. Like this is very much like a film of the 70s. It leans heavily into like the practical effects of it all, and more of like the body horror elements, and it does all those things so well and really grabs our attention.
And it makes you wonder if David Cronenberg had been a little bit further in his career at this point, and people were more familiar with him, it makes you wonder if he would have directed this.
Will we get Cronenberg Invasion remake in like 2024?
I would totally watch that if he did.
I would also watch that.
I like what you said about remakes though, because it just like, I think that you can make a remake of something. So kind of like what I was talking before about the Watchmen show, where it's like you take like a premise and then you can add so much to that. There's obviously something that's awesome about just like the concept, and then you can add so much more to that, where it's like it fits the context, like the current context of like the time period that it's like being remade, or maybe you're like remixing it in some way for it to be from some kind of like new perspective. I think if you kind of try to remake the same thing, or you try to make a movie that's too broad, I feel like that's where you kind of like lose people, and then it loses like some potential substance. Like I saw this movie once. I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but it's about this is a movie called There's Nothing to Do with Aliens. It's called Pariah. Super fantastic movie. It's on Criterion. Really awesome.
I've seen it. It's good.
Yeah, like I love that movie. Basically, it's about it's about this really like very specific experience, and there's like intersections of like religion and race and sexuality. It's like all this other this stuff, and like this character that's really dynamic versus a lot of the criticism that I heard about the movie Bros from was it Billy Eichner, which was kind of like it was so broad and so generic, almost it tried to do like way too much, or it was so reminiscent of other movies where even if that was the point,
Wait,
it was kind of at its detriment. The movie Bros with Billy Eichner.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like if you're going to try to remake something, like really try to go out of your way to, I don't know, just to figure out like what is the point in which, like, why are you remaking this thing in the first place? Like, why are you trying to touch like a current generation? Because there's nothing stopping them from like watching like the 50s versions. Like, why in the 1970s should we remake this? Oh, okay, well, maybe whatever they were thinking. Like, I think that's really awesome. So that's one of the reasons why I like this movie. I didn't see the 50s version, but like obviously Vinnie, you said that it was good, but yeah, maybe I'll watch it later on tonight. Maybe tomorrow. It's kind of late, actually. I don't know. I don't want to watch horror at like 11 o'clock at night. But
I thought you did see the 50s version because I remember my sophomore year, your freshman year, Dr. Lucia had that cinema tech in the auditorium at the business school, and one of the movies we watched that day was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I know
might have seen the whole thing. Maybe I might have like either like left early or came late or something like that. But I don't remember watching the 50s at all.
Yeah, because I know Shane was there. I think Ramsey might have been there. I could have sworn you were there too.
Yeah, I definitely don't remember. There it goes. Look at that.
I love the cover to the 70s one.
Yeah, this one's really cool.
Also, really that opening creepy too, right? Like that made me like want to like I don't like slime or like weird stuff or bugs. So and the opening had all of those.
So it's Matt's worst nightmare. But like what's interesting to kind of put like kind of a bow on this conversation about remakes. I remember when the tragedy of Macbeth came out, and listening to the Breakfast All Day review, Alonzo Duraldi's just like, but why? But like, why did Tragedy of Macbeth have to be made in 2021 or whatever? And it's just like, what about this film is trying to capture the time, the society of the day? And I think that is one thing that Invasion of the Body Snatchers does, is because, the 50s one is very obviously like Cold War
McCarthyism.
Yeah, McCarthyism and the communists and all that kind of stuff, and it feels very relevant. And then this feels like that 70s nihilist kind of everything is like the world's doomed and we have no power over it, and what the hell we're going to do with it. And which I guess that might be a thing. It's like, what did the 2008 version of it bring to the table? Like, was that necessary? And I also find it interesting that they just called it Invasion. They didn't even have like the Body Snatchers part of it. So like, I don't even think I realized that was a remake when that first came out, because I hadn't seen it. And then of course, Edgar Wright just does these things because like he lampoons them, but then also makes great versions of them. So like that's his purpose, is trying to be that homage, but also commentate on it. So like there's so many versions of this story, and we're going to get more versions of this story. There's always like the other replacing us kind of thing. And, you know, from like that's definitely a fear of a lot of Americans today, is the other coming in and taking our jobs and taking our lives and taking our spot in society. And that kind of paranoia is still something that creeps up on a lot of people, for better or worse. Obviously, a lot of material for like art and stuff like that, but a really unfortunate world perspective of just being so terrified of other people that are infringing upon your existence, or at
Or
least your,
viruses.
huh?
No, I'm just kidding. No, I said or viruses, but no, I'm just kidding.
We can go there too. But that's what peak science fiction does, isn't it? Commentates on society and looks at the world.
Well, that's why I think too it helps that the you know, because it is a big issue when you have invasive species, especially because in Australia it's such a big deal that, you know, you can't bring an animal. There's like very strict, you know, whatchamacallit policies from keeping you from bringing certain animals or plant life, or else it's going to destroy the ecosystem. I feel like that, you know, as per really good science fiction, that's what this movie did, was to, you know, highlight that issue.
Yeah, because it's like science fiction, we could do all kinds of stuff with it. And when you can put in layers, because, you know, there's so many great science fiction films that put commentaries on all kinds of stuff, you know, like Terminator and our reliance on machines, and Joe, replicas also about our reliance on machines.
Is that the one with is that the one with Keanu Reeves?
Yep.
Inside joke, because Joe and I saw that January came out. Bad movie.
If you thought, and this is like right around the time Keanu Reeves is like getting his career back on track, but he's still like known for being the wooden robotic actor. He's playing opposite of a robot. Like, he's just not perfect January trash fest. And then
endless trash.
Endless trash.
But I guess, are there any other particular points that anybody wanted to bring up about the film?
Well, I think one thing in particular that I feel like really made this movie so much better, you know, to the end, you know, and that's one thing I feel like really makes this such a great science fiction movie, or even just a great horror, just in general, just great horror movie, is like, I feel like a lot of movies, you know, shoot their load way too early, or in the climax they put out all the effects, they show what the monster looks like, and then afterwards it's just, all right, we got to go fight the monster, and then, you know, everything's going to be hokey-dory by the end of the movie. It's like, we're still only getting bits and pieces of these pod people. We're only seeing bits and pieces of how the society works, even to the point where you're at the very end, you still have more questions, you know, as to what the purpose of these people are, what the planet's going to look like, you know. And to me, that's what makes it such effective horror. It's like, you could have easily had the people disintegrating midway in the middle of the movie and realize that that's what happens to the original bodies. Like, it got to a point where, like, I wouldn't say it like got spoiled to me, right? When I first saw this, is like, I had an idea that they were replicating the bodies, and then the original bodies were being destroyed, kind of like in The World's End, where, you know, that's what they told you in the middle of the movie.
Turned into fertilizer.
It turned into fertilizer. I really thought about it as I was watching the movie. We don't know what happens to the bodies until the lady, and in a great effect, is just disintegrating in Donald Sutherland's hands. Like, for the moment, you think, like, wait, do the bodies get buried? Do they get killed? We don't really know what happens to them. And it just, again, just keeps adding to that creep factor, you know, and you're just peeling away layer upon layer. And to me, it does suck that I saw this late at night, because, like, yeah, I had to, like, really give myself a coaster of, you know, goofy YouTube videos to really just get me to sleep afterwards.
Well, and I think the subtlety of this is so important too, because, like, obviously, like, Matt, you brought up the very, very beginning with, like, all those like little details of these growths growing and stuff like that. But then we're first introduced to this phenomenon through this couple, and like the husband is cold for some reason. Like he's not acting like he wants to engage with his wife, and there's just these little details. Donald Sutherland going to the dry cleaners, and the guy's like, "That's not my wife," and the way she's just looking at him, and it's just like those little things. You're pulling back, they're peeling back the layers, and once we get to the film, like Kaufman, the director, knows when to reveal things. And, you know, I think a lot of great science fiction that deals with like an air of mystery really needs to be able to know when to pull that back and do that big reveal.
Yeah.
Soylent Green, so impactful. You don't even find out anything until like 15 minutes left in the movie. And this has a great pace to it. There's a lot of tension and suspense and paranoia along the way. I just think this is a really effective film.
Yeah. And even second, what you were mentioning before about good reveals. I mean, think about every Twilight Zone episode, like the ones that have like the really big endings. Like To Serve Man, you don't find out about, you know, them cooking the people until the last line of the Twilight Zone episode.
It's a cookbook.
It's a cookbook.
But anything else?
I'll just say that the day after, so it's like the movie starts during the day and then the night, and then like the couple, all that stuff. And then when she goes to work and she's talking to like Donald Sutherland, like you see like there's like something off with some of the people, and like that happens like a lot during the beginning half of the movie. But the one creepiest thing is that you just see like a man, kind of like his whole body is just kind of like staring. It's only like for 2 seconds because the camera's like watching, it's like following them while they're walking down a hallway. But you just see like this man just kind of like staring at like anyone and everyone like outside, almost kind of like a lizard or like a plant person. So that was really interesting. It was almost like one of those things where it's like those YouTube videos where it's like 20 things you might have missed. Like it's like, oh crap, like I found one. So that was, but it was kind of like it wasn't funny. It was like unsettling. So I thought it's a good movie. It's definitely a good movie. Like I would watch this again. I would buy this DVD. I would, yeah. Oh, also wait, one last thing. Super gross that the pods bleed red. Super duper gross. Super duper gross. Hated that. Yeah. All right. And now I'm done. I think. How did the pod people get their clothes? I was thinking of like the movie Us with Jordan Peele. It's like, wait, where are these clothes coming from?
I have a theory to that, because you remember how like the chick was fully naked and just running around naked at the end of the movie. I think once they replicate them, the replicants take the clothes.
You know what, Matt? It's funny you brought up Us, because isn't there a scene in this movie where like a couple of like the main characters are dressed in like red, like they're not like suits, but they're like
jumpsuits. Like
they are
jumpsuits.
Yeah, and like okay, so they are jumpsuits. Yeah, and I was thinking, oh wow, like Jordan Peele must have you know, he must have taken this motif and used it as an inspiration for Us, like that. Yeah, I don't know, like it was like, no, again it's just funny that Matt brought that up, because as soon as I noticed that in the movie, I was like, oh, I gotta remember to bring this up during the recording.
Yeah, that was, yeah, every time I think about that movie, I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of Us, but just the thought of like if I were to get a knock on my door and I were to open it up and see someone that looks exactly like me, like that sounds horrifying. That sounds, I think that's that's in itself, I think, another Twilight Zone episode. I think like somebody inside of a train station. I don't know. Wait, but one more thing I almost forgot. How did you guys react when Donald Sutherland was like asleep and you see like the birthing of these pod creatures? That was like watching The Thing. Like it made my stomach turn.
Right.
It was like hard to watch. It was terrible. Yeah,
Well,
what you think?
well, you know what I liked about it was how, like, you know, it's not like I liked how the movie didn't try to like speed through that. Like, you know, you actually saw it was pretty much like in real time, like the pod people developing and hatching from the pods. Like it really, you know, like it's like a nice like slow burn type of scene, because like you're watching the birth of these things, and it's just a really really creepy scene.
Because they're flailing. They're having like tremors on the ground, covered in mucus.
Yeah.
Even that sentence alone makes me want to change the subject.
No, it's yeah, not to mention too, like it made me think of two things. One, it made me realize, like, you know how in Jaws they tell you, you're gonna be afraid to go in the ocean, right? Because of the sharks. And for a long time people were afraid to go to the ocean. I was afraid to sleep. I was afraid of the nighttime because it was all happening at night, and the idea of you falling asleep, years before Nightmare on Elm Street comes out and tells you to be careful of going to sleep. I was afraid of going to sleep for the potential of me getting copied and turned into a pod person. And then the second thing too is, would this technically be considered the start of like the body horror genre?
I mean,
I'm thinking of like other movies that came out before, and I can't think of them.
I definitely feel like it's like at the beginning of the body horror trend.
I feel that way because like I can't think of like other movies that came out before this one that did this type of body horror.
Yeah, because I mean, I mean, just a year after, you had Alien, and you know that was body horror, like a point because you have the chest bursters.
Yeah, I'm taking a look because Cronenberg was 80s, so starting to really get films like Videodrome and The Fly and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to see there's anything on here that's before the 1980s, and it doesn't seem like there's a ton.
I mean, I know Cronenberg, like his first couple of movies were in the 70s, but I'm not sure if they were very much body horror at that point, because I think he developed into body horror like maybe a few movies into his career.
Because there's even a film that came out, The Incredible Melting Man, also came out in 1977.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the original Body Snatchers. I mean, like, that's like, well, I think like because of like, I guess like because of the practical effects used in the 70s version, and the way you see the pod people develop more in this one. I guess like the 70s one can be seen as a little more body horror than the 50s one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like I see some like 50s and I'm looking at like body horror media and stuff like that, and it looks like there might be some things in like the 60s that were in like that era of like 60s monster features and stuff like that. But like for the most part, I guess this really is towards the beginning of really mainstream and body horror.
Yeah.
Oh well, what about the 50s Fly? The Fly from the 50s.
As far as like modern, it's a guy with a fly.
It is body horror. Is it body horror if it's just a guy with a fly mask on?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So, because like it obviously it's not grotesque. Like,
right.
You're watching something disturbing and disgusting happening to the human body. But God, that's something else. It's just like buzz, 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 buzz. It's like a guy with a giant fly head on.
Like when you do at whichever point you do Cronenberg for your directors episodes, like it's just gonna be like months of like us being grossed out and just feeling awful.
I'll have to have like a puke bag next to me if I'm gonna be watching all those movies. Like, every time I gag.
And then the 2000s come along, and then it's just a bunch of violence. But
a history of violence, so to say.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
I could give you some Eastern promises that you're going to see some violence.
But I'll tell you something. It'll be a crime of the future if you don't do a Cronenberg
we gotta
marathon.
Keep this going.
We have some terrible jokes coming from our dangerous methods of coming up with jokes.
You could say we come up with jokes on the fly,
and then Matt's just scannering around his room, just being like, "Yeah, there he is."
I'm video droning away, folks.
On that note, I think we're done. I think we can get sent home. But Joe, Matt, and Vinny, thank you for coming on and chatting Invasion of the Body Snatchers and terrible Cronenberg puns and wordplay. But thank all of you for putting up with that crap and always tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Halloween.